Now, I know you saw the title and thought, every enemy?
That man's an imposter. That man is the imposter.
And yes, if you think about it for 5 minutes, every major enemy in Doom the Dark Ages is the Marauder. Timing? Check. Press a button when you see a glowy green thing? Check. Do you maximize damage during that brief window when the enemy is vulnerable? Check, check. But what explains the disparity? Whilst the majority of gamers believe that Eternal is better, there haven't been any major complaints about enemy design in the Dark Ages, whereas everyone and their grandmother considered the Marauder to be a turd in a public urinal when Eternal was released. Well, let me tell you. Reason 1. Repetition is the mother of learning. If you want to get better at something, you do it over and over and over and
over and over and over and over and over and over
and over again. From the word go, the Dark Ages teaches you the idea of being reactive as to kill enemies and maximize damage, which is built into the player's head from the start. Every major enemy in the Dark Ages requires a parry to maximize damage, but Eternal only has one enemy where you're supposed to be reactive. Every major enemy requires you to parry to maximize damage output and efficiency, so it's a habit baked into the player's psyche. Above everything else, in Doom the Dark Ages, video games and real life, repetition, consistency and habits build comfort and make you better at what you're doing. But since the Marauder is the semi-exception to the gameplay formula in Eternal, it feels jarring and off-putting when you have to fight him. He's unfamiliar as every other enemy in Doom Eternal is just shoot until it's dead. He stands out as you need a different set of instructions to kill the Marauder. There's a sudden spike in difficulty and a drastic change in instructions because with other enemies, spamming every ability can work, but with the Marauder, you have to keep your trigger finger in line. Contrast this with the Dark Ages. Every major enemy requires you to parry, so when you come across another new enemy that clearly needs a makeover, to the Slayer, it's just another donut you have to eat.
Oh my god! Where did you get that brownie?
Over there's a big pile of them.
Reason 2. Tools of the trade. Or lack thereof. In Eternal, it gives you ample tools to close this gap and rain hell against hell. The dash, the meat hook, double jump and so forth make you a fighter jet. But said tools allow you to dodge and be invasive, so in turn, you would use the same tools against the Marauder when you have to fight him. You dash and double jump to avoid his shotgun and projectile attack, but most importantly, you avoid the Marauder's axe swing when his eyes glow green, which runs counter to what you're supposed to do. When the Marauder initiates the old dreaded sprint towards you, so he can split you in half, you stand your ground and...
Gotcha, bitch!
You're supposed to bait out the run and wait for the eyes to glow green and start weapon switching to maximize damage. Some of the Slayer's tools that were once useless against the Marauder now become viable when the Marauder is stunned, such as the grenade and freeze bomb. What makes it even worse is that in the Dark Ages, it gives you a lot more than just damage when you get your timing down. Health, ammo, armor, melee ammo, weapon buff. Getting your timing down is a goddamn feast, whereas in Eternal, it's just damage, which is good, but...
I want more. And I know I shouldn't.
At the end of the day, why have cake or ice cream when you have cake and ice cream? And Doom the Dark Ages gives you both. Furthermore, while some of the Slayer's tools that were once useless against the Marauder become viable while the Marauder is stunned, such as the grenade, this is not explained to the player and they have to figure it out for themselves like a Dark Souls boss. Speaking of Dark Souls, Reason 3, overlapping mechanics from other game franchises. Who would have thought that the mastermind in Miyazaki was also teaching me how to slay the legions of hell when I was trying to dodge Melania's 10,000 sword swings? In games like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Star Wars Jedi, and most melee action games, it's unintuitive to attack during a specific time window. It makes more sense to block. When you press the block button at the right time, it becomes a parry. That brief window of opportunity where if you press the block button, not only do you not break your posture or lose stamina, but you stand to gain some benefits from the perfect timing. The enemy is stunned, so you can do maximum damage, and you may gain benefits from it, such as increased attack speed. And that is no different in Doom the Dark Ages. You time your block just right and you stand to benefit health, ammo, armor, and weapon buffs. You name it and the game gives it to you. In Eternal, you don't parry, you press the fire button, which on the surface seems easier as there's no delay between the button press and pulling the trigger, but in reality, games have taught me to parry, not attack. This leads to the fight taking longer as it's not as ingrained in the player's mind that my gun is the shield, the super shotgun ballista combination is the parry, so the player keeps playing keep away from the Marauder until they figure it out. There's also one more reason why the Marauder was hated by almost everyone at release and yet no such hate existed in the Dark Ages. Reason 4, the disruption of the flow state. The Marauder, even if you're good at Eternal, demands extreme attention and forces you, ironically enough, to slow down. In this case, keep your trigger finger in check. Since he demands extreme attention, it's harder to focus on other enemies as the Marauder is being shoved down your throat. With other enemies or even entire groups, you're between weapon switching, flame belch, grenade, ice bomb, and maybe a super weapon on occasion, blood punch and repeat. But as soon as the Marauder appears, the flow state gets replaced with a game of whack-a-mole. In the Dark Ages, despite the game being slow and more reactive, it still keeps you in the flow state and stays aggressive. Tied to the idea of parrying being extremely rewarding in the Dark Ages, if you parry the attack of one enemy, you can use the buffs on another enemy, directly and indirectly. You can use a weapon buff such as cannibalism that you just obtained from parry on another enemy, keeping you in the flow state. Shield runes like Holy Swarm attack multiple enemies, keeping you in the flow state. In Eternal, it's pretty hard to focus on others and stay in the flow state when everyone's favorite axe wielding Chaos Gremlin is running at Mark 5 to get you. So there you have it, folks. The Marauder, the second most hated thing in 2020, is just another enemy in the Dark Ages. But whilst the Dark Ages taught from the very beginning to parry and get your timing down, in Doom Eternal, the difficulty curve went from smooth sailing to climbing Mount Everest with a fork. Once you play the game a few times, the Marauder becomes a lot easier to manage and in a way, uplifts and supports the game design of movement, weapon switching and using cooldowns. But on the surface, he feels like someone who has a t-shirt which says, consistent and predictable game design is for noobs and people with a room temperature IQ. In Celsius. And that definitely would stir the pot. This is Zach, not Zach, signing off. Please remember to like, favorite, comment, and subscribe.